growing up, all I wanted to do was play rugby league. I just wanted to be an athlete, a pro athlete. I wanted to try and become a poker pro, but like there was so much that I still had to learn.
There needs to be skin in the game. There needs to be a level of sacrifice. Okay, I'm willing to pay X amount of money for myself.
Look, we can talk poker, but let's get the mental side right first. I don't think the game theory stuff and the actual understanding of poker is as important, in my opinion, as the mental side of it.
Stop dumbing it down. You want a WPT event.
We live inside our egos too much. 50% of the job is showing up and saying, I need help.
Adam, you have had a very interesting story, I would say. I mean, you and I did a little bit of work together a bit over a year ago.
Yep.
As a result of you listening to one of my other episodes and kind of following on the self-help and self-development kind of journey. You've been on a journey yourself, not only in poker, but in business as well, by starting up your own pie business.
Yep.
And that's going quite well at the moment, which I'd love to hear more about. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to pick your brain. How does it feel to be here in my studio?
I'm kind of humbled to be here, actually. When I listened to, it was the episode with Jared, when I don't know when that came out. Maybe it was like March or April last year.
About that time, yeah.
Or perhaps a bit before. I played a poker tournament, and it was the first one I'd played in a while, probably because of COVID and whatever. And I came, it was at King's, right? And I won, I think, like 8K, and I was just like, whoa, like, okay, I'm going to get back into this now. I had that fire in the belly. Then I listened to that. I think I saw, perhaps he shared it on his Facebook, and I listened. I thought, if I'm going to take this seriously this time, then I want to take my stuff to the next level. So I reached out to you, and here we are today. Like, it's been a big journey, mate. So yeah. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, awesome, man. No, look, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I think there's a lot more to the story that we need to uncover, right? So you have had some success before even coming to me for coaching. You finished second in an Aussie Millions tournament, which is an incredible feat because it wasn't only that, but it was a Six Max tournament, right? Is that right?
It was Mixed Max. So
Mixed Max.
Yeah,
okay.
Start with 8. It was such a cool format. So you start with 8, and then when there is 36 people left, what happens?
You go to 6.
You go to 6, and then when there's 8 left, you go to heads up.
Yeah.
And I tell you what was cool about that. Like, poker's huge for me, mate. Like, it's one of my biggest passions in life, right? And I'd slowly built up bankrolls each year, and then I'd go down the Aussie Millions and I'd stuff up, and I'm like, all right, let's start again. And I'd learn about the game. That was the year where I felt, this is it. I was doing my business. I had enough money saved up. It's relatively young. I wouldn't say super young, but I knew enough about poker to know who I was versing heads up when there was 4 to go. Michael Gathy, I think his name is. I don't know. I think it's Gathy. Michael Gathy has won 4 bracelets in the WSOP, one of the most renowned players in Belgium. I could be wrong, but that's just what my memory is telling me at the moment. And like, how do I say this without sounding egotistical? Like, I felt like
you're allowed to sound egotistical.
I had his measure, mate. Like, I felt like I dominated him, and it felt for the whole tournament. Like, I felt like I was really sort of coming into my own, and it was in that environment. Like, all the top pros are here, and like that event had, Alex Foxen and Kristen Bicknell and a few other pros in it, and yeah, I felt like I belonged there, where the 10 years prior playing poker, I was still trying to find my feet.
Yeah.
After beating Michael, I remember one of my good mates that I went down with, he could tell, like, when I got to heads up, it kind of felt like I already won, which was bad because, like, I really wanted that ring. I really wanted that ring, but I'm like, geez, I'm like guaranteed 50K here. This is the most money I've ever had at any one time, as in like in one go, you know what I mean? So and then the guy that I was with was so angry with me afterwards because he's like, you just threw that away. Like, what are you doing? And what's his name? Bass Delat. He beat me heads up. And like, look, he deserved the win. And the guy that I was with hated me saying that when I said, look, he deserved to beat me. he's like, are you serious, mate? There was a gold ring on the line. There was an extra 20K. And that's just where I was at the time. But I felt like I did, like looking back, I threw it away.
So you're in this situation where you've kind of already overperformed in some sense, and you're like, wow, like I'm in one of the toughest tournaments. There's Alex Foxen, all these types of really tough players.
Yep.
And you got to the point where even before the final heads up match finished, you'd almost like accepted, this was my win. I got 50K. But you didn't really think that, like, I'm still in this game and I should be going for the win and never giving up. And then even after it, you were like, oh, well, he deserved the win. It's not really the winner's mindset, is it?
It's such a poor mentality looking back, mate. Because, but it's representative. Is that the right word? It represents where I was at the time mentally in terms of like, so today, or when we were doing our coaching, right, in the WPT last year, I think it was the 5K main event. Mm-hmm. That was the first time in my poker career where I felt like where I truly belonged with the pros. Like I was playing well enough and people were realizing and sort of, I think when I was on the table, I was perhaps being perceived as one of the pros, probably obviously not like a notable, but like that's how it felt. Like I felt like, all right, wow, I've done some serious coaching. I've really worked on my game. And I felt like I'd never played better than during that tournament there because it's high stakes and you would know better than anyone when you're playing a 5K. Or I played the Aussie Millions main, right? In that same year, 2018. And wow, the stress level was ridiculous. Like it's on another level. But the more you practice, the more you play, the more you feel like you belong. And that back then, I was sort of immature as a poker player with respect to the pros and feeling like, do I belong and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I did have that feeling of like, do I really need to like, I felt like I won going heads up, but yeah, such a poor mentality.
And your opponent probably sniffed that out and pounced on you, right? Like maybe that you'd already kind of surrendered knowing that you've already won something. But,
yeah.
I'm kind of interested. What you were just talking about there were so many things that I want to ask about this, right? I think the most important thing that stood out for me there that I'm curious about, and I think other people will be as well, is you mentioned the word belong like 3 or 4 times, like this sense of, I belong here. What does that mean to you? And like, why is that so important for you?
Well, this is a weird way of answering it, but like growing up, all I wanted to do was play rugby league. I just wanted to be an athlete, a pro athlete. Tore my ACL 3 times. I'm not saying I was ever going to be good enough to make it, but that was when I was really young and like dreams shattered. I've always just wanted to be a pro athlete or a pro at something, like within the sporting world. And when I first watched poker, when I was 17, I was at my mate's house. He and his family used to go to Vegas all the time, and he chucks on the World Series of Poker. And I just see, I think that year it might have been either Hashem or Gold or whatever.
So we're talking like 2005, 2006?
Ages ago.
Yeah. Shows how old you are.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Thank you. I fell in love straight away. And I thought, well, I'm probably not going to do anything in sport. That, to me, poker was like the closest thing to like, I feel like I could be good at this, and then I won my very first game that I played. I think it was at Kellyville Country Club. I won like $500 and I'm like, all right, this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I had that thought when I was 18.
Yeah.
And we talk about belong. Like when I played my first serious tournament at the start, might have been like a year or 2 later, I was like way out of my depth. And I think I remember maybe it was Craig Blight and Billy the Croc. I remember playing with them. They're just 2 familiar faces that come to mind. It's like I felt like this young buck like showing up for the first time. I was just like I know enough about the game, but not in terms of like the way I know about it now. In terms of like the solvers and ranges, the different way to look at it, the mathematics and.
Well, that was also a time when no one was really talking about solvers and ranges because solvers weren't even invented back then.
Solvers weren't, but there were books.
Yeah, but they weren't really talking about like ranges. They were talking about like in different senses. They wouldn't use. I don't think you'd see the word range in any of those books from like 15, 20 years ago.
I'll have to. I thought there might have been a few that were like the No Limit Hold'em for advanced players by Geez, it's been so long since I've read these
even
books.
The word book is a bit of a dinosaur term in itself.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Hi guys, I hope you're enjoying the episode. I just want to take a short moment to tell you about our new website, theaustralianpokermindset.com.au. Over there, you can try our new meditation platform to help your poker performance. Once you're logged in, you can go to My Library, Poker Meditation, and you can see that we've got a range of meditations for live tournaments, cash games, online tournaments, or just general meditations for health and well-being. We also have soothing backing tracks if you're on the table and you feel like you need to just calm down and get yourself in the zone. Once you're in here, you can click on which aspect you like, and you can scroll down and see there's a range of different types of meditations for all your needs. I'll be building off this every week and adding new meditations as we go. Thanks for your time, and I'll let you get back to the episode.
There's one called Kill Phil. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, so my story that's similar to yours, where I went in and played against, and I felt like the young one was against him. Lee Nelson wrote that book. And Lee Nelson had a TV show called Joker Poker.
Oh,
Did you ever watch that?
No,
dude, I love that show. It was like on, it was on regular TV, I think at like 9:30 or something, and it would be all these like comedians that would play poker, to be all televised sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Lee Nelson was the host, and so I used to watch that all the time, and I loved it, and it was so entertaining. And then eventually I played and won my very first ever massive tournament at the Star. I won the APPT opening event. I think it was the year Grant Levy won the main event, or maybe the year after. I won $50,000 as an 18-year-old kid, and I beat Lee Nelson. He came third, and I won it. And it was like that was like my, oh my God, Lee Nelson's on the final table.
Yeah. How did you feel like you belong, like in terms of that word belong? Like, how did you feel about
I think for me, the sense of belonging is important in a different way. For me, poker is... because I was in a big family and I was the second youngest, it was more important for me to be seen and heard, right? Seen for my value, seen for my skills and all that. Because I've been in a big family, you're just kind of in the mix with the noise, the rest of the noise.
Yep.
So I think that's what's kind of made me, like, I always felt like I belonged. I was in a big family. We're all pretty close and tight. Like I have a wolf pack kind of thing with my brothers. Like,
yep.
So to me it's different. But I'm more curious about you with that sense of belonging, like, and how that resonates, and you want to be a pro athlete. Like, what makes you strive to like reach this pro status? Like, and why is that so important for you?
Such a good question. I think it's obviously a sense of achievement, right? Like poker is arguably my biggest passion in life, next to like rugby league and outside of like friends and family and the normal stuff, things that, like hobbies, right? Rugby league, Manly Seagulls, as you probably know, the biggest, and then pretty close is poker. And I just love the game. A big part of it as well is the people that you meet along the way. Like I've made some awesome friends, like some people I'm still friends with today and have been for, since 2005 because of poker. But obviously there's so many other elements, and there's the friendships, there's the math side of it, there's the spiritual, the feel, the intuition, the game theory. There's just so many elements, and it just has such a beautiful dynamic to it, which I think stimulates me mentally, and that's why I love the game so much. And when I talk about belonging, when I played the big events or the bigger events that I was used to, knowing that these players had never seen me before, and I'd never achieved anything, that's when I didn't really feel like I belonged in that arena, but I wanted to. And then over time you play and people recognize you, and you do I've done some dumb stuff on the poker table. Like,
we all have, come on.
Oh, I know. But would I still do those things today? I mean, I would be a lot more calculated. I think like, as you get older and as you get more experience as a poker player, who to make certain moves against, and that's the difference.
Yeah. You're a bit more calculated with it, and sometimes you get the timing wrong, and it may look dumb, but at least you had a decent reasoning behind why you did it, rather than some sort of irrational tilt sort of move or punt, let's say.
Exactly. And I had a lot of no fear. I still have that, but that was one of my biggest assets, but also it was like a double-edged sword, because you'd get the really good players that would wait for me to, try and steal a pot out of the small blind squeeze with Jack 4. Just like perfect spot to squeeze. But like, if you're good enough, you just know, like it's obvious what I'm trying to do in that spot, all things considered. So,
yeah. And the elite kind of players are able to see what you're up to.
Totally. I mean,
yeah,
100%. Like, because it's like they've been there and they've played more than their 10,000 hours. You know what I mean? So,
So when we were offline before we were kind of discussing the idea around, what brought you to coaching and what like importance that might have on you. And I think a lot of people who have listened to my podcast have listened to some of these other people who I've had who have already had like a lot of big success. And I think it's interesting to learn a little bit more about, what the journey is like to get to that, right?
Yep.
And I think for you, I'm curious to know about this idea of, okay, you wanted to take it seriously, and so you sought out a coach. What's that importance on you, and like, what's the relevance to your journey? Like, why couldn't you just do it on your own?
Well, I'll tell you what, like the reason why is because 2018 was that year after the Aussie Millions where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try and become a poker pro. But like, there was so much that I still had to learn about myself, about business, about how to manage money, how to manage a bankroll. And not just that, about the game itself, So I thought when I had that result at Kings, I'm like, all right, if I'm going to take it seriously this year, it's time to do that and take it very seriously. And I felt after listening to your episode with Jared, I'm like, all right, we've got to get in contact with Brendon. I knew we knew each other, but not like only if we saw each other at the Star. Like
we'd played against each other a couple of times. Yeah.
And I
think I noticed you squeezing out of the small blind with Jack 4.
Yeah, you sure about that? You probably called me with ace deuce offsuit. So I reached out to you. I'm like, all right, if I want proper success, sustained success, if I want to take my shit to the next level, am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I'll just have to move it from the kids to the adults section now. Thanks.
No,
yeah.
Blank that out.
Yeah.
If I want to take it more seriously, get a coach, get a mentor, a proper, like someone that, I mean, like clearly you've had a lot of success, and without you knowing, I always kind of looked up to you and the way that you played the game, and I admired the success that you had up to that point. So I reached out to you, and I also knew, Brendon, that like it wasn't just gonna be advice on the actual game. It was more the mental stuff. And I don't think the game theory stuff and the actual understanding of poker is as important, in my opinion, as the mental side of it. I really don't. So that's what I was excited about the most about working with you, because I know that you're promoting, you're like, look, we can talk poker, but let's get the mental side right first. And bit by bit, slowly, it started to really help. And, as you know, I had a few, I wouldn't say huge results, but, I
Stop dumbing it down. You won a WPT event.
Okay. Well, probably when I say that, we talk money-wise, right? Like,
I know money is a way of keeping score, of course, right?
Yeah.
We all kind of feel as poker players that is a way of keeping score, but I don't think it's an accurate way of keeping score.
It's fair.
Because, like, there are so many swings you go through, and the development and the value that poker and the journey of being in poker brings to you in your life is way more than just money.
Yep.
As you know this for sure, man. I'm sure all the stuff that you've done prior to being with me and like doing stuff with me as well, you would have 100% transferred those skills into your entrepreneurial life, your relationships, your health and wellness, like all that's value, man. So when you have a result where you win a WPT event, dude, don't dumb that down, man. That is so rare. And also, we won the same event. You know that, right?
It was the $400 deep stack.
Deep stack. Yeah, so it's the last event of the series, but yours was Gold Coast, mine was Sydney.
Look, let's talk about this, all right?
Should I get the trophy out?
Okay. Yeah, I should have brought mine. Look, you're right. Like, it transferred. So you created me a meditation. I listened to the general one that you had, and that helped a ton. But then I'm like, Brendon, what if it's day 2 and like I don't need to go to the cash register and like register every day? It's just the way my mind works. I'm like, can you create something that's a little bit more tailored to me and my game that I can listen to before every tournament, or maybe even during the break or whatever. And that kind of thing, you can't underestimate, because it obviously before it, you close your eyes, you listen to this meditation. It's kind of like manifestation, but it helps in the sense where it removes the shock from when you're in that environment. So if you're like, Adam, you're about to go play, this is what it's going to smell like, these are the dealers and all these things where you bring it to life. And I'm in that moment. I'm like, oh, I've been here before.
So it's a rehearsal.
It's a rehearsal.
Yeah.
It helps ease the nerves, and it keeps, more than anything, it keeps you grounded, which is so important when you're playing poker. You need to be, as best as possible, you need to have a clear mind. You need to have a clear mind. And I don't know, I think you know this. Like when I was playing, I would listen to brown noise.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember you saying that, yeah.
Sometimes house music, right? I just like, is that constant 124 BPM, I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
Like I'm listening to music, but I'm so aware of what's going on. But when the brown noise comes on, it's like shit's getting real, right?
What's brown noise different? Like, I know what white noise is, but isn't that white noise?
It's kind of the same.
Okay,
I
all
guess.
right. I never heard of brown noise. I know what you meant by it, but I just
You're
want
not part of the brown noise club?
Brown nose or brown noise?
Brown nose.
Is brown nosing where you like suck up to
I
people?
think so.
And stuff?
Yeah.
No, I'm not part of the brown nose club.
Okay. Well, you should join the brown noise club.
Yeah,
It's
that
very
sounds more relaxing and more calm. But okay, so you found that personalized meditation was able to help you get more in the zone and relieve any stress that's associated with coming up in the tournaments that you had.
Yeah.
And I suppose this is a perfect time to plug my new meditation app, which people can sign up to for only $20 a month and listen to a range of different ones. So when you mentioned that to me, that was one of my first triggers to be like, yeah, why don't I have one that's like for day 2 and one for this and one for that? So now you can actually sign up, and I have like 20 different ones, and I'm going to keep building off them. In addition to the fact that if you want a personalized one, I can do that too for people. So I'm really happy to hear that sort of feedback.
I just want to say, like, if anyone's new to your content and they're even thinking about like doing this, about like, and I'm not being paid for this. I want to make that clear right now.
Thank goodness, because we've got that on the table.
Yeah. As in, where's the brown paper bag? Don't think twice about it. Literally just download it, get onto a meditation, take that leap. And like the moment you get into one and you give yourself that chance to listen, especially with the way the world is today and the way our dopamine receptors are just getting depleted every day with TikTok and constant swiping, whatever, it makes it more difficult to take the initiative to give something like that a go. Even though it's a small thing, it's like, I'll get around to it eventually. But the moment you give yourself that chance to download a Brendon Ruby meditation and you listen to it for half an hour or whatever, you crave the next. And it's like, you obviously have to charge people, because how are you going to make money, right? So it's like people need to wrap their head around paying for something like that. But it's unvaluable. Well, is that the right word?
Invaluable.
Invaluable, sorry.
Yeah.
It's invaluable, the type of value it would bring. I mean, I'm the perfect sort of example of that. And so when I won the tournament, I had sinus the whole time.
Yeah, I remember.
I had tissues up my nose.
Yeah.
Ted, I think Michelle Saris, I don't know how to say your name. Sorry, Michelle. Sorry if I butchered that. She took a photo of me, like with 2 tables left. I looked like I was like one sneeze away from going to hospital. But
Goodness.
Even though I had sinus, I was just super in the zone. And mate, I got to credit the work we were doing together, because how else can you be that, like, I guess, in that medical state or whatever, and win a tournament? And I felt like I was in that much of a good headspace that, like, I was bad beating people, because cards were just falling my way. Like, I was still playing good, but it felt like no matter what, I was always going to make the right decision because I was in a good headspace.
Well, that's very normal. I mean, if you win a tournament, you are simply just going to be bad beating people here and there and winning your flips and stuff. We kind of all know that. Like, if you're a professional, successful player, you know that to win a tournament, you have to run good. But the biggest thing that we double down on is the fact that, well, when you do run good, you capitalize off it. Because I've seen people run so pure and not actually, you know, getting the final 3 where all the money is. And it's like, you just dusted it off in one key crucial mistake where you were running hot in 5 hands and then one of them you punted it off. It's like, whose fault is that? Like the luck, everybody has the same distribution of luck. That's the way I view it. And obviously in the short term, that's kind of like hard to see it that way. But if you have the mentality that everybody gets the same amount of luck, then, well, firstly, that makes you less like resentful and bitter about other people winning because you know that your time might be coming, sort of thing. But it also helps you understand that you can apply yourself no matter what, right? And continue growing no matter what. And when the luck comes, you're ready for it, right? That's the key thing, right? So I think that's kind of what happened with you. You know, you were doing all this work, and then I think it was actually like 6 months later that we started that you had that WPT result, right? Like it was a fair while.
Do you remember when we
would have started maybe like May last year, and then I think your result was like September or November.
I don't think it was that long. Hey,
really? Okay, so 4 or 5 months.
I think it was like a couple of months after.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
right.
And one thing. So you helped me mentally a lot. But we also spoke about the game enough. And one thing I'll always remember and will always take with me now was the finite versus the infinite, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry if that is like a spoiler for what you know, if you want to use that in future sessions.
No, you're good. You're good. You say whatever you want.
Yeah, but it really you really, really have to think of poker that way. Because
can you explain what you mean?
So finite and infinite. Geez, I hope I don't butcher this either.
It's all right. I can help you if we can.
Yes, you can steer me on the right path.
So they're finite and infinite games. That's the way. So life is a game. There's finite and infinite games.
Yeah. Infinite is you're going to be playing poker between now and indefinitely, right?
Right.
Finite is just that tournament there.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, like the goal for every tournament is to win, even though it's incredibly unlikely at the start of every tournament that you're going to come first.
Yeah.
But it's important when you're playing that every single hand, you're thinking of the infinite, right? And you're making decisions accordingly. And I guess the way to talk about that is, you know, you don't like, if you got aces, right? Oh, sorry, no. If you've got kings and, you know, you feel like someone's got aces, but like it's really early in a tournament, it's like, don't fold just because you feel like someone has aces, because the math says that, like, I don't know, like over 95% of the time, you're going to win that hand.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if that's a bad example to give, but...
No, I think it's... no, so I think it's relevant, right? Because it's the idea that, well, if we're playing a mathematical game, then if I make what we call plus EV, right? So the expected value is in the plus, not the minus. If we make those decisions more often, we're just simply going to make money while you ride the swings of the game.
Yep.
I think the idea of bringing this to the infinite and finite game is trying to understand that often in poker, people think it's a finite game where I need to win this tournament, and if I don't, I'm bad.
Yep.
Or I've made all these mistakes. You could do all the right things and lose the tournament. Does that mean that you are bad or not? No. We need to look at it from a long-term perspective. So you keep making profitable decisions, and in the long term, you'll just make money. Right. So that's kind of the view. So it helps with your study, and it helps with your mindset to carry your emotions through the journey.
Totally.
Right?
That's the absolute best way to, obviously the best way to put it. And what helps a lot with that though is diving into things like solvers and getting into game theory and all of that. Like, I didn't really understand the importance of that part of poker until we started coaching. Like, I looked into it before. I'm like, all right, like I think I get it now in terms of, because I think I got onto GTO Wizard.
Yeah.
Right. And from that moment, I just practiced. And I would spend maybe 2 or 3 hours a day just, you know, going through different hands in different positions and all of this sort of stuff. And it was like, all right, when you're in that spot in a tournament, you think back to like, what would the solver say, or what would it do in this spot? And I guess the idea is to kind of become like a robot in a sense where you're playing your tournaments. You want to make your decisions based a lot of the time on what the solver is saying. Now, of course, there are moments, of, you know, specifically when we're thinking of ICM implications where Do you still make the same decision as a solver? Maybe, like if you put those circumstances in, but outside of that, when you're talking infinite, it's like just think like a solver. Think like a solver. And I think that is what separates a lot of the good from the great.
Yeah, yeah. And I think to really just kind of clarify what we mean by the infinite and finite game before we move on, I think that when we're looking at other things like sport or something else, like and where else this surfaces, let's say you're a soccer player. Let's look at like Ronaldo, right? Ronaldo is highly praised for his success. People like him, LeBron, Messi, similar concept, right? They're praised not because they won one game, right? Not because they won the World Cup, not because they did one fantastic play and scored a great goal. They're praised because they've done that and kept their body in physical peak shape for the longest period of time.
Yep.
So that's the infinite game. Like the goal of their career is not to win the game. That's why if they get a bit of a niggling injury, they get benched because, well, this one game is not worth your overall career. So your job as a player is to stay fit and strong and win, because if they win the game, well, firstly, to be able to win the game, you've got to be able to do the right passes and make the right play. Then you score the goal. Then you get more goals than the team. Then you win the game. But then you've also got to win the season. Then you've got to win the Champions League. Then you've got to win the World Cup. And then, the playoffs or whatever it is. So in poker, the way of viewing it as an infinite game is your goal is, of course, to win as many hands as you possibly can and increase your chip stack. But your main goal is to stay in the game as long as possible.
Play as best as you can.
As best as you can. Make as optimal decisions as you can to stay in the game.
Yep.
What does that mean from a broader term? Well, that means that, okay, I'm making statistically the right types of plays because of my study, but also I'm choosing tournaments where my bankroll can handle the swings so I can stay in the game.
That's
Infinite game.
It's such a big part of it
right?
too.
Health and wellness as well. I am doing things on a day-to-day basis, even when I'm not playing poker. That means that my body and my mind are healthy and balanced and, in physical and mental peak so that when the games come, I'm ready.
Oh, there's so much to unpack with all of that. Like when I think of, I see so many players, right, talk about bad beats and the moment someone comes to me and talks about a bad beat, that's their tell that perhaps they're not a great player, without trying to sound...
It's a tell. You're right.
Without trying to sound disrespectful to those...
No, you're right.
To those people. It's like, because you kind of just summed it up then. It's like if you're worried about bad beats, then your mind isn't where it should be. And then you're not looking at the game in the way that great players do. And I think great players, instead of thinking bad beat, they think, what could I have done differently? And what led me to that moment where I know it sucks because someone, obviously a really bad example, you got Jackson, someone just 7-2, whatever I'll call because shits and giggles. And then 3 7s come out, 2 7s come out, whatever. Like that situation comes once every 1 million hands, maybe. I don't know, right? But I think it's really important to obviously think about the infinite game. But also, the more you play, as probability says, if you're good enough and you're making the right decisions, results will come your way eventually. It's just managing the bankroll and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I guess for you, what's the journey been like through, let's say, some of the really challenging parts? Because as we know, no matter how well you can play or how good you are going to go on these inevitable downswings. But you just mentioned, knowing that I can, have the patience to withstand these swings, it will kind of balance out. What sort of things do you do or tell yourself to get through those really hard sessions? The ones where you've driven all the way out to Marconi, God forbid, and have to drive home at 2 a.m. because you busted out on the bubble or something.
Plenty of those.
They're painful drives, aren't they?
Well, you know what? Look, I feel like I have a pretty strong mindset. Like I very rarely bubble, and I feel like it's because I don't let myself. I don't let myself go there mentally. And I can't, if I do, I don't beat myself up over it. If I'm bubbling heaps, then I'm like, all right, what needs to change? That's a big red flag, right? But when we talk about downswings, if it's that bad where I'm really hemorrhaging money, then it's like, all right, have a break, have a Kit Kat. You know what I mean? Just go and have a few weeks off. But also, mate, I subscribe to the David Goggins of the world, and mate, just don't make excuses. Just get out there and perform.
Right.
In fact, that Mix Max event, the guy that I was down with, it was my second bullet, right? I think he started with 10K and I was down to 6, and he sees me because he was playing like a side event or a sit and go, and I'm like, mate, I'm going terribly. I was in a pretty poor mindset, and he's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you, like, just get your chips and throw them away. Like, he gave me like the tough love. He's like, why would you bother playing if that's your mindset? Dead set. Like, he gave me exactly what I needed to hear, because I respond well to that, like Adam, like the army sergeant, drill sergeant, like, get the fuck up and like do the job. You know what I mean?
You can swear, by the way.
Get the fuck up and do the job. So, sorry,
the tough love.
The tough love. And like, I came second, right? And a big reason was because it's like, he's right. Like, just play your game. Don't worry about anything. Show some strong mentality, and also have fun. I think that, right? That part there is underestimated. And when here's the thing. If I'm going to a tournament, sometimes I know I'm in a bad mood, and I just already know that I'm not going to do well, but I play anyway, which is just so bad. But I'm like, I want to play, but I feel like if I'm in a bad mood, I can't perform, because you're kind of always going to make the wrong decisions. When I'm having fun, when I'm in the zone, but like I'm not like ignoring people, I'm just like happy, and I'm not in my mind, I'm not in a shit mood. The majority of the time I perform well, because my mind is healthy, and when you're happier, when you're in a positive mindset, you make, I believe the stat is 30% or 30% more of the time you make better decisions. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. No. I'm sure that would be a subjective stat, though, wouldn't it? Like, it'd be different for every person.
I guess.
When we're talking about emotions and psychology, like, it's not that clear like a solver, let's say. Like, and this is why poker's so challenging.
That's true. Yeah.
You use a solver and you go, well, this is the most optimal to play to make mathematically. Yeah, but you're playing against humans, and if you can have a read on someone, then you should deviate from the solver. The solver's not the right way to play all the time. If
this was Joe Rogan, I'd get Jamie to bring up the stats on the big screen.
That's what I should do with this TV here.
Get the stats up.
Yeah.
I heard it somewhere,
Okay.
and it might have even been on Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson or something like that. And although I agree, it probably is subjective, I think there's some merit to it too, though, because if you are in a bad mood, like, okay, if I'm in a bad mood, or if I'm in a negative mood, it doesn't have to be bad. It could just maybe be like a little pessimistic because I've eaten wrong, I haven't slept well or whatever. Then I might maybe make a call, for example, or call for my whole stack when I probably know that I can wait a few more orbits and put myself in a way better position. I think if you're in a better mindset, you allow yourself a little bit more time to be patient and more calculated. So.
Yeah. And I think, like, I totally agree with you. I just don't know how you'd figure out the stats. And I'm not disagreeing that that's correct or not. I'm just like, it's the first time I've ever really tried to put a stat on, like, well, if I'm not feeling good, like, how much worse is, because people think of like ROI, right? So in poker, if you want to make money, you got to figure out what your return on investment is. If you're a cash game player, you figure out what your hourly rate is. If you're a tournament player, you figure out what your ROI percentage might be per buy-in or something like that. It's very tricky to know, right?
Yep.
You need a seriously large sample size.
I'm going to look it up after this.
Yeah. So most people don't track it, but there's a website called sharkscope.com. Yep. Most people don't really know about this, surprisingly. But if you play online, you can go and opt in, and then your stats will be shown, but then everyone else can see your stats too.
Yeah.
So you can go up and look what yours are. I've looked up mine, and over maybe like 10,000 hands on both GG and ACR, my ROI is 12%.
Right. Okay. I don't know if that's good, bad.
Well, if you're in profit these days, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially online, because online's pretty tough, compared to what it was 10, 15 years ago. My ROI live would probably be higher than 130%. Right. 130%. So basically for every dollar you put in, I'm making 30 cents profit.
Yep.
So this is a helpful way of looking at how to figure out, what you should expect to win when you play poker. All right. So if my ROI is 12%, let's say, for every dollar I put in, I make 12 cents. So when I play online, for example, I'm multi-tabling. So then you get to multiply that by how many tables I'm playing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a good way of kind of figuring it out. But most people think, oh, the buy-in's $100 and I won 10K. That's like 10, like 1,000 or whatever it is, 100x, that's not the way to look at it, because my ROI is 12% because of how many other times I buy in and just don't cash.
That's what I did well in 2018. It was one of the things I did well was like, I put down every tournament I played in an Excel sheet and the buy-in and all of that. And I did the same thing this time around. But in 4 years, I learned a lot about myself and how to manage money. So that kind of came naturally to me last year. But if you're not doing that, if you want to take poker seriously and you're not doing that at a minimum, as in like keeping tabs of every live tournament you're playing, how many times you're buying in. Maybe you don't want to do that because you don't want to know how much money you're gambling, but then you're not a professional gambler.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's not just like, it should be a mandate if you want to become a pro poker player.
Yeah, and look, I think I'll admit that, like, for me, that was one of my weaknesses over the years, which is why most of my career I've been staked. Because I found it really difficult to manage. Like, I'm similar to you, where I've had to do a lot of work on like money management, or I've had to do a lot of work on, just tracking things. Like, because my skills were like performing. That was the main thing. Mathematics wasn't even my strongest thing. My strongest thing was being able to really stay in the game as long as possible when I'm super fatigued and everyone's fatigued. Like, not just in any one day, but over the season and over the year and over the 5 years or whatever it is. Like, my ability to just perform and just put pressure on people and maintain through the stress. That was my biggest strength. So the last thing I wanted to do was look at spreadsheets and track things and stress about the money and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we all have our different skills, and I think that's why my brand is not the Australian poker Excel spreadsheets. It's the Australian poker mindset. That's the key thing, performing, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, people don't win, was it APPT event pretty early in their career for 50K? So I'm sure that helped a lot too.
Dude, I dusted that 50K off 2 months later at Aussie Millions.
Well,
not all of it. Like, it was maybe like 30K off the 50. I remember I bought a car for like 10K, which wasn't even that. To me, that was expensive. Like some Subaru Liberty, wagon. And then I spent like 30. I had no idea. As an 18-year-old kid, you just gave me 50K. What do I do with that?
Yeah, but
I just wanted to follow my dream, play big tournaments.
Look, that doesn't surprise me. Like, when you told me that, I was like a little shocked. But then I'm like, Aussie Millions, like each tournament's like minimum 1K, 1,500. You know what I mean? So,
and I had no idea how the swings of the game would actually be.
Yep.
Right.
Did you play the main that year?
I did, but I didn't put 10K in. I remember I got staked into it or something. I forget who, because I played the Aussie Millions like 8 times.
You've played it 8 times?
Maybe more, maybe 10 times now.
Yeah.
Because I played it from basically every year from 18 through to 29 whenever they stopped doing it.
How did you feel when you played the main that year? It would have been your first Aussie Million or big main event, right?
Yeah, I was 18 years old, of course. So it was a 10K event. Yeah, I mean, it was huge. The only biggest one before that was the APPT main event, which was a 6K buy-in.
Yeah.
That was the year Martin Rowe won it. I think Martin Rowe won it that year. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was I was way out of my depth, like, in terms of buy-in and all that sort of stuff. So every experience I've had all sorts of different experiences like that. Even I played the 100K once at the Aussie Millions when I was 20, I think.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is just like,
I only had like 5% of myself.
Yeah, right.
Or 7% maybe.
Right.
I had so many different people buy like 5K here, 5K there, or whatever.
That's pretty common with even like a lot of the pros themselves, even that can afford it. From what I know, don't typically buy themselves all the way in anyway, right? Like they a lot of them are staked, but still.
And then they end up swapping percentages and all that sort of stuff. But it's very common. But like basically, I suppose like, you have to think about what your direction is with the game, right? Like, and at the time, my direction was like, I'm a full-time player. I literally did nothing else. I lived and breathed poker.
Yeah.
And I just wanted sponsorship from PokerStars or Full Tilt Poker. And that's why I played the 100K event, because they were doing a lot of advertising at the time. And I was like, it's a small field. There might be like 40 players in it. If I can kind of get lucky or whatever, even though they're the toughest players, I know enough to hold my own to at least, maybe get in the final table or final 3. And if I do, then I'll get a sponsorship. Yeah. And that was worth way more than the 5 or 7K I invested in myself into that event.
Did you get the sponsorship on the back of that? No. Okay.
No, but I busted out early and Gus Hansen knocked me out or something like that. So I lost the flip.
Risk reward though. Like,
it was worth it. I don't regret it.
Yeah. That's so cool to hear. Yeah. And when I played, so after the second, I bought myself in for about 4K into the Aussie Millions main. And, I felt like a duck out of water big time, but I still felt like I was good enough, and like I was playing well enough, but like, I was sitting next to Matt Affleck and Mustafa Kanat and a few others,
Wow.
So I was more like, how fucking cool is this?
Yeah.
More than anything else. And I think that's a problem when you feel like you don't belong, coming back to that word belonging. I don't think that's a good thing, because then you feel like it's like you don't kind of belong in that environment with these players. And I think you need to have a result to feel like you are respected by these people who are sitting at this. Well, I mean, maybe that's just me, right? But the way I was thinking then, if I played that tournament today, I wouldn't be egotistical about it, but I feel like I would belong because I've played at those stakes now and I know enough about the game and I can hold my own.
Right.
And yeah, back then it was just non-existent.
Yeah, and I suppose like if you can't spot the sucker at the table, right? Like
you are the sucker.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. Obviously, best movie ever.
Best movie ever. Yeah. Best poker movie ever. I mean,
actually, yes. Best poker movie
There's
ever.
a lot of movies out there.
Like The Dark Knight.
That's a good movie.
Are we going to talk about top 5 movies?
We could. Maybe I'll start a new podcast. Okay. We can talk about movies. No, okay. So this is cool, man. This is really interesting to get more about, some of your stories and stuff like that plays a role in your journey. And I suppose to come back to the idea of the importance around what coaching means to you. I kind of feel like when someone comes to coaching, and I don't know if this is what it's been like for you, when they come to coaching, I actually feel like pretty much 50% of the work's been done when they show up to the very first session.
Yep.
Because they've decided, you know what? I can't do this on my own. I need some help. I need some accountability. I need some direction. I'm willing to pay for it. So nowadays, I used to do a lot of like kind of free sessions here and there as I was kind of building up what I was doing. Nowadays, I don't really do that because I found that actually people just don't respect it enough. People would actually, like often people just not show up to the session.
Yeah.
And even if they do, they often, didn't really implement anything, or there wasn't skin in the game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There needs to be skin in the game. There needs to be a level of sacrifice. Okay, I'm willing to pay X amount of money for myself. And when you did that with me, when you came to me, you said, no, I'm going to do the package. Let's do the 10 session package.
Yep.
I'm willing to invest this money like in myself. You've done so much of the work by making that commitment that the rest that we work on from there is just like it compounds, right? Like, is that what it was like for you as well? Or?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems with people in general is that we live inside our egos too much. And you just said 50% of the job is showing up and saying, I need help, right? Because in a way, it's also therapy in a way, counseling, therapy, coaching. It's obviously not as, I would say taboo maybe as if you go to a therapist and say, I think I need some mental help, but it's on maybe the same page as like, you got to swallow your pride and your ego and realize, shit, if I do want to take my game to the next level, either I have to study profusely and be super disciplined and show up and manage things correctly and all that, all the right ingredients that a pro poker player would need, or reach out to someone that is offering that assistance through coaching, through mentoring and showing up and putting skin in the game and paying the, whatever it is that you're charging. And it helped me a lot as well because like I played sport growing up a lot, right? And I've had a lot of different coaches and, the tough love thing. I think, remember I told you, I said, Brendon, I need the tough love. Like,
I do remember this.
Yeah, that's right.
This was a powerful moment for me too, because in my development, right? Because that's not my nature. And I think I said that to you at the time. I think I said something like, oh, look, okay, I understand that you need the tough love. You need the guy at halftime to go, what the hell are you doing? Get your head in the game, you idiots. You want to win this or what?
Yeah.
And like, that wasn't really my upbringing. Like I'm super like calm, super chill. Like I grew up in a Christian family. Like I'm not going to go yelling at someone that's just, come to me for coaching.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So it wouldn't be in my nature. It wouldn't feel genuine, but it was a powerful moment for you, I think as well. Well, maybe not because you kind of already knew it, but it was a powerful moment for our coaching alliance, right? Because we were able to understand how you best were guided.
Yeah. And what you respond
the
best to. Yeah. I think also could be a contradiction. I think perhaps if you need the tough love, maybe that's a mental barrier in itself where, if you're someone that's cool, calm and collected the whole time, regardless, then you're on a good wavelength and you're able to maybe progress at a better rate than the people who need the tough love or who need the soft love or some sort of love that is outside of that balanced field that we're talking about. But yeah, I've just responded to that better my whole life. In business, right, when I came up with Head Power, which is like my first major startup, I had a mentor who's a good mate now, and he kind of gave me the tough love as well. Like he didn't sort of shove words down my throat, but one thing I took away from his teachings was I'd have success in a certain area and I'd get really excited. Back in the day, I'd get really excited about what I would deem a big achievement, and I'd tell him about it, and he's like, good. All right, so on to the next. Like, you've done your job.
Right.
And I'm just like, at that time, I'm like, are you not proud of me? Are you not like...
Yeah, where's the praise?
I'm making progress here. Where's the praise? And then I realized, like, as time went on, he just kept me grounded. And when we had our first session, he drew like a boulder, and then this thing, like, in the startup world, Adam, you're going to constantly be pushing a boulder up the hill. And it's the same with poker. It's the same with anything in life. You're always going to be battling, and you're not going to get there straight away. It's going to feel like you're pushing a boulder up. Don't celebrate the wins, but celebrate them in a way where you're not getting carried away and bring your feet back down to the earth and stay grounded and just keep pushing forward. And maybe that's tough love, I guess, but that's what I respond well to. And your coaching was, it was more the meditation, and sorry if I'm going on a tangent here, but it was the meditation stuff and the tough love was because I was not, I knew I could be performing a lot better than I was, even with your help. And I'm just like, Brendon, I think I just need a little bit of tough love. If I make this move, just say, Adam, no, don't ever do that. Like, just be straight up with me and say, people who want to be a pro poker player, they never do this. So just never do that again. Instead of, look, this is what you could have done differently. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. But that there's the most popular book in the self-help world called the How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
So one of the rules of that was like basically don't complain, criticize, or I forget the other word, but basically don't complain or criticize people. If you want people how to win friends and influence people, right?
Yeah.
You want to influence them, you want to motivate them, you want to collaborate with them, don't criticize them. So this idea of tough love, I see as criticizing. Don't do that, Adam. You did this bad. You did that bad. And then you win a tournament. Oh, yeah, good.
Yeah.
I think the way, and look, you told me that that's how I best learn. So I'm not going to deny your reality. I'm not going to say, no, that's not how you best learn. You best learn by the way I tell you. That's not how this works. Yeah. My job is to listen to you and listen to your guidance as much as you're probably thinking I'm going to guide you, right? It's a collaboration. It's an alliance, what I would call it. Yeah.
You did that well. You were very adaptive, and like I appreciate you even wanting to be flexible with the way you do your work. So I think that's the sign of a great mentor and a great coach.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
And also, right, at a minimum, it's just so helpful having someone there, right, in and around the sessions that you can message and call, and obviously within reason, right? But like that, it's like a teammate where you can talk about stuff before, during, after. And yeah, I think that, that was as valuable as the sessions themselves, just having you there for let's just say 3 months that we were working together. I think that's Is that how long?
It's about that, yeah.
About
3-4 months, yeah. Yep. And you still got one session that you're keeping in your pocket.
Keep it in the bank
when you get that final table and you need that kick up the ass. Yeah.
100%.
I'm here for you.
I'm saving it. I'm saving it.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I think, it's an interesting journey to be a coach and to adapt with the people I work with and really, be there for them in different types of ways. To me, it's a poker game in itself, right? Like I don't play the one strategy with every single person. It just wouldn't work. Just like in poker, you've got to exploit the player you're playing against, or for me, I don't exploit my clients, but I want to work with them to work for them. And I think like what you're talking about here with this idea of like, knowing I've got someone in my corner all the time and that support was so powerful for you is, I think it's probably because in poker, we're often very hostile to everyone around us. Right? Like everyone's trying to get me. Even when you're off the table and you might be having a drink or dinner with someone, it's like, they want to know about me.
Yeah.
They're going to use it against me in the tournament and at the APL Millions next week or something or whatever it is. So we always kind of have our guard up just as much as the other person does too. So it's almost like we can't trust anyone. So when people, sign up for a coach, it's like, well, I can trust this person. And that's a powerful space because you can learn and open up and all sorts of things can happen in that space.
Well, I mean, of course, like you've had a lot of success with poker yourself, like in terms of your live earnings and results. That was one big reason why I wanted to work with you, because put the mental aside, put the game theory aside, I just knew that you would teach me things that I didn't know. And I think that's as important as well as anything we've discussed is because of your experience. So yeah, like when I talk about exploiting, remember we sat down at Marconi Club and I think it was the main event. You came a bit late and we played
on the same table. That day? Yeah,
same table.
Yeah.
That was the first time against you where I'm like, I obviously mean this in a cool way. Like I felt like I had your measure.
Oh right, yeah.
But not like
you did have position on me.
I did.
That was an advantage. You were two to my left.
Yeah. But like I'm like, oh, okay, coach and coachee or whatever. Like this is a cool dynamic, and I'm like, obviously I felt like you're still a better player than me, but it was I'm like, is he going to exploit what I know about what I've told him in these coaching sessions? And there wasn't even a hint of that, because you told me about the finite and infinite. And regardless, if you and I are playing the way we are meant to be, then our decisions aren't going to be based on, they would be based on our information, but more or less on the infinite decisions we should be making. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I think actually the games, even since that experience, which was maybe 9 months ago now, maybe a year ago, since then, I actually think that the game has evolved a little bit more, right? So this is one thing that I'm really comfortable and on point with how long I've been in poker. So people don't really understand this. I'll try and explain it. Poker's constantly evolving. We know that, right? Right now, everybody's all on about the solvers and all that sort of stuff, and they have been for maybe 5 years now, something like that. I think that we're getting over that now. We're getting to the point where people are realizing that solvers aren't the be all and end all. Yes, they have incredible power, and the foundation of our strategy should be built around solvers. But the next level on top of that is that you're not playing against robots. You're playing against humans.
Yep.
And when you find out information that someone's making consistent, leaks or mistakes, then you have to deviate from the solver to make maximum profit.
Yep.
So what is happening with the evolution of the game is it's doing like a full loop. So about 12 to 15 years ago, when I first got into the game, it was very exploitative. There's all these funny videos about this, how it's like, poker back in 2005 was like, I think you have nothing, I call, but now it's like, I think you have, this part of your range because you checked this and you didn't do that. And then, so, this is eliminated from your range, this, blah, blah, blah. So now I think it's coming back to that, like, okay, this person just makes this mistake too frequently. I'm just going to play a splashy game that's going to exploit that, or play a super conservative game that's going to exploit whatever it is, right?
No doubt the best players, in my opinion, are excellent at both, at exploiting, but also sticking to game theory when they need to. And like, you need to have that in your arsenal, I believe, if you want not just good results, but consistent results. Because if you're just game theory, then you'll get eaten alive by the players that exploit, because then you'll be super predictable. And likewise, if you're just exploitative, then, you know, the game theory people will eat you up. And and you'll even, in one or the other, you may even begin to lose more often to amateurs because of the different style and not making the correct exploitative play against an amateur because of X, Y, Z or whatever. So I don't even know where I'm going with that.
This happens often. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
You know, you got the bright lights on and you're like, wait, I was talking about something really cool. And then
I wanted to say something that at the time in my head made a lot of sense.
It'll come to you when you're asleep tonight at 2 a.m.
I'll be messaging you. Can we redo?
Yeah. No, look, I mean, I think, this whole place that we're in the poker world now is, coming back to exploitative rather. So I always kind of say that it's important to know those foundational things, like simple things like starting ranges, like bet sizes, opening sizes, c-bet sizes, those types of things. They're pretty kind of consistently generic, let's say. But once you get to a stage where you notice someone making too many mistakes, whether they're too loose, too tight, or whatever, comes with that, then you must deviate from that. That's what I was always very, very good at in my years. Like I was criticized a lot when I was in my early 20s for not really playing a theoretically sound strategy, because I was doing all these things that everyone else was like, what's he doing? Brendon's like, he punted off here, or he's like, aggro here. And it's like, I mean, it increased the variance in my game, but I think that I was doing it in specific situations that worked long term for that particular player. So I was like a chameleon, always able to adapt.
You've jogged the memory. So,
good.
Yeah. Well, intuition is so important, in my opinion, in poker, which comes with experience, which comes with, I've been playing for 16, 17 years now. So when you sit down, I mean, you're just so used to the positions that you're in. Obviously not the players. The players change all the time. Not necessarily if you for example, Kings or Marconi, pretty much the same players, but they're evolving all the time as well. So you got to rely on your experience and how often you've been in this exact situation before. And if you're in it often enough, ultimately you're able to make decisions based on intuition because it's just so familiar to you. But in tournaments, it's key to sit down for as long as you can to get the information on the day, because the way you're playing today, so if we've played together for the last year, you're a new player, the way you're playing today may be very different to how you've been playing for the last 10 tournaments, for example, because you might be in a different mood, your knowledge of the game might be different or whatever. But I think it's important to figure out how you're playing today or anyone on the table in that tournament and use that as your guide, right?
So you mean when you get to the tournament, then you kind of like strategically wing it, when you get there based on who's there? Is that what you mean by that? Or do you mean like...
Well, I don't go in with a strategy. I go,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
I go in with the basics. I think it's really important to have like a foundation of... actually, number one is like, all right, who am I sitting down with? Like, you got to know your surroundings. If you're on a table with 7 players, or you're on a table of 8, and there's 7, forgot the terminology.
Fish?
Not fish, but they're
amateurs.
No, they because I played 3 tournaments this year, so I'm like.
Why did I get you on my poker podcast then?
No. Well, the good thing is, like last year, I was having a lot of success with poker. And I'm like, well, you know what? Like, I've got to do the business. I've just got to put 100% into that.
Tell us about your business.
Yeah. So it's called Non-Natinas, and we are carrying on her legacy. We're using her recipes in a meat pie. We've got 4 flavors at the moment: bolognese, boscaiola, eggplant parmy, chicken parmy. And in September last year, September of 2021. So that was like 6 months after we started. I just had this light bulb moment. I was kind of like, why aren't Italian pies or Italian filling inside of pastry? Why isn't that a thing, right? which it kind of was on a small scale, where meat pie companies, they would do bolognese pies and whatever, but it would just taste like meat and onion and like some like little bit of tomato sauce.
Yeah, there's no culture in it.
No culture.
Yeah.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let's give this a crack. And the lean startup, well, like we were talking about before, instead of, I didn't put like 100K into the business straight away. The first thing I did was obviously did some research to see if it really was something that the big pie companies weren't focusing on. And then I went up to random people and sort of said, hey, I've got an idea. Can I make some pies for you? Let me know what you think. And I had about maybe 10 or 20 different random people say, whoa, I like this makeshift bolognese pie you made me. Where can I buy these? And that was the next indicator for me to say, all right, let's turn this into a business. Look, I could go on forever in terms of like the start of it, but
yeah, the process.
Yeah, exactly. Would have to be here for another podcast episode.
Yeah.
But like rewind maybe 5 years prior, 3 years prior. Sorry, 2 years. I gave up a business that I had for 5 years, my advisory business. So I always kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur again, but I was waiting for that next business idea to hit. And then when I thought of the Italian pie concept, and I had to think of a name for the business because I'd already asked Mum for the recipes, and at the time, like, Mum, please give me a recipe for like a bolognese. What would your bolognese recipe be? And I'm like, hold on a second, my nonna, like I'm going to call this Nonna Tina's. And it was at that moment, I had an awesome job. I was working full time. I was playing poker. Like, this is it. Like that was that moment in my life where, Brendon, I'm like, it kind of just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I never had a real sort of sincere sense of purpose in my life. I wouldn't say I was never like a negative, but in terms of why am I on this earth, that was that moment. And this is why it's such a beautiful thing, because it's for my nonna who I was really close with when she was alive. And that, I wake up every day with an incredible amount of purpose. And this is kind of like a forever thing, and the goal is to get this to a point where I can play a lot more poker. That's one of the end goals for sure.
What do you think that your nonna, am I saying that right?
Yeah. Nonna.
Nonna.
You're doing it, yeah.
Nonna.
Nonna Tina.
Nonna Tina.
Yes.
What would Nonna Tina say to you right now?
I thought about this the other day. I think she'd laugh, you know what I mean? Like she'd find it quite funny, I think, but also I'm sure she'd be proud, and a big reason why I am doing this is for my mum. Like it's for my nonna, but I just know how close my mum was to her, and she was absolutely gutted when she died 17 years ago. And when nonna was alive, the family was so tight. I don't want to air our dirty laundry, but I've got 3 aunties, 4 uncles, and we're a bit of a broken family at the moment, and people have dispersed, and I hate it. I've always hated the fact that we can't all come together and just sort of let bygones be bygones and love each other and have this one big happy Italian family. So a part of me creating this business was also in hope of bringing the family back together. And I do still hold out hope that one day we can do that. Maybe we'll be successful enough one day to have this big event. Like, that's a big vision of mine, is to have this big event in this big hall where it's not just my family, it's you, it's everyone that I know just comes together and, spreads the love. That's what I want for Nonna Tina's, is to be this brand that brings families back together.
And feel like there's a place you belong.
Yeah. Yes. The word belong. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, man, but you were talking about that earlier in poker, that sense of belonging, and then now it's come up again about family. I mean, it's pretty powerful.
It is. When you think about it, it is. And I've had, like, personally, right, growing up, I'm like how do I say, I feel like I'm a unique kind of guy. Like, I'm just different. Like, I think differently to a lot of people. I guess maybe I'm a bit of a lone wolf as well. Like, I love my own company. I'm an extroverted kind of guy, but I'm also very introverted. Like it's kind of scary. I just spend a lot of time on my own, and so I think in terms of this business though, it is that sense of belonging, but not for myself, but because like I love the thought of this bringing people together, and I love the thought of my mum living on this earth knowing that her mother's legacy is carrying on through this business, and I hope that it does inspire other people and other families to come together and belong, which is obviously one big theme of this whole episode, even though I spoke about being a lone wolf, like that is one big aspiration, is to bring the belonging back together.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, that's a pretty common thing, I think, for entrepreneurs and business owners. There's a sense of like really putting yourself out there in this extroverted way for the community, but then now I need to recharge, right? People misunderstand the term introverted and extroverted. I don't know that one person can be all of one and none of the other.
Yep.
It's like you're often a hybrid of the two. And poker's kind of an interesting space then for you, because you're sort of able to execute both of those, because you might be in a crowded room of poker players, but you also may also feel alone and be on your own.
Brendon,
right?
don't get me wrong, mate. I love people. Okay, so I'm the guy that goes to the footy, and on the hill at Brookie, I'm the one that starts the chance. Like I'm
really, you're one of those guys.
You know what? One game I remember. Melbourne Manly, it was the Battle of Brookie. I think it was 2011. I got on someone's shoulders, right? And I started everywhere we go. I started that, right? And I swear the whole hill, 4,000 people were following me. Like the energy I get from that, I get more energy from that than anything. Like big crowds and doing stuff like that, like I love. But I guess the reason why I say I'm a bit of a lone wolf is because of the entrepreneurial stuff, where I separate myself from everyone so I can just be razor focused. And like I've got a lot of friends, but it's more one-on-one catch-ups or birthday dinners or whatever. But when you live the life of an entrepreneur, like all I want to do is go to the library and study, or go to the gym and have a quiet night because I'm working on the business. So I don't know if that's introverted, extroverted, or just living the life of an entrepreneur. So
yeah, I think it's very common nowadays too. I watched a funny video do you know that guy Awakening with JP?
No.
On YouTube. He does just comedy. He's a comedian, but he's very intelligent, and he's always making fun of kind of let's say controversial things, which most comedians do, right? Like, and he's sort of it was like an 8-minute video of him going, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. And then like, he basically says, I wake up in the morning and I have an ice bath and I do this, he's making fun of all the things that we think we have to do now as entrepreneurs. I read 30 minutes a day before even turning on my emails.
100%.
Like yeah.
It's a big, but you're also like, I'm sure you believe this too. You're the makeup of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So as I've gotten older, I've also purposefully separated myself from, like, I used to be a nightclub promoter. So however I am today is the complete opposite. I used to have a guest list at the Ivy, and I used to speak to people like all day, every day. It was the opposite to what I've got at the moment. But when I thought of Head Power, when I first delved into entrepreneurship and I had a mentor and he sort of gave me that advice, that's when I realized, okay, now I have to be very selective about who I'm hanging out with and learn to live on my own, in my own thoughts, and just work.
I think that's part of growing up too, and like kind of maturing with and I guess growing your character and discovering your inner self, right? Yep. Like, because we are having this spiritual journey or experience on earth, with this body of flesh and blood, right? Yep. Like, and so as you get older and into the 30s and stuff like that, you do realize, well, why the hell did I hang out with those certain people who are not helpful to me and like living by values that I don't even live by? Like, that's part of like growing up. And when I know, because like I guess I'm on a similar journey to you with that, like running my own sort of business and doing my own stuff. And yeah, I resonate a lot with what you're saying, like being extroverted at times, but spend so much time on my own, right? Like, and that's sort of, I think I found it is like part of that spiritual journey of figuring yourself out and discovering your purpose and your meaning. But
Yeah.
look, man, you and I could chat about this for hours, and maybe we do need to do a separate like business entrepreneurship podcast. But for now, I think it's the perfect time to wrap up. I would love to keep chatting your ear off because there's so much more I'm sure we would like to uncover.
Of course.
But at the moment, man, like I am so impressed by the journey you've been on, not only in poker and your self-development, but with your business as well. I've been kind of on the sidelines watching all your Instagram stories and stuff and seeing things progress. And, it's really inspiring, man. I mean, I know you want to bring the family together and do all that sort of stuff. I mean, people are learning and watching and feeling a part of something from just the sidelines. So keep doing what you're doing, man. And I'm excited for you. So congratulations.
Thank you, mate. It means a lot. And thanks again for having me, dude. And I look forward to episode number 2 or part 2 of this 4-hour chat.
Well, we'll see what the response is. Like maybe they figured out who the guy yelling and screaming at the Manly games is now, and they're like, nah, I don't.
Just switch off your content because of me. That would be a disaster.
No, look, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you being on here.
Thank you, mate.
Cool.